episode 144.
And we took our jobs personally. It was not a paycheck. It was something that was in our body, in our system. And so we worked around the clock. We had phone calls with different salespeople. We had sales call with plants and distribution centers. And we came up with ideas. And we did not lay off one employee. We put the cost savings in. We didn't lose any customers. We didn't lose any employees. And McCurdy, when we presented that to him, he got a tear in his eye.
Welcome, Aftermarketers, to On Point from Remarkable Results Radio and a special interview from an auto care industry professional. On Point. Hello, Aftermarketers throughout North America and around the world. Carm Capriato here, and welcome to episode 144 with Dr. John Passante. And hey, you're in for a real treat. This episode is brought to you by Federal Mogul Motor Parts. Search for parts, get the latest technical updates, and sign up for their new Garage Rewards loyalty program at their all-new website, fmmotorparts.com. Hey, do you have a story to tell? Feel that your wisdom needs to be shared? Well, I would be flattered to have you on the show. I welcome you to connect with me, and let's get you on the air. Go to remarkableresults.biz guest or the guest tab on the site. Let's do it. If you worked hard building and creating something from nothing and emerged battle-scarred and successful, well, the world needs to hear about it. Yes, it's time you paid it forward, and the podcast is just the medium to help you do it. Now meet Dr. John Passante. John is a legacy automotive aftermarket human resource leader. He's worked with and for some of the biggest names in our industry, including Monroe Tenneco, Delphi, Moog, and CarQuest. I've seen John speak at many events, and he's always ignited the spirit of self-development and leadership in me. John wrote a book called The Human Side, High-Touch Leadership in a High-Tech World. Now, that's a great title with all the non-human attention we pay to each other because of tech. So when I got in touch with John to discuss his book and the leaders he's known in the industry, he was immediately on board. Listen now to the result of our leadership chat and listen to John speak to the qualities of Larry McCurdy, Hubert Hub Moog, John Collins, John Gorlick, and Warren Ellis. You are in for a real treat to get to know a few of the legendary leaders that helped shape our beloved aftermarket. Here we go. I'm very excited to be with John Passante, President and CEO of the Organizational Development Group and aftermarket veteran. Hey, John, are you ready to go on point?
Absolutely, with a lot of passion and enthusiasm, Carl.
Oh, how exciting, John. Now, everyone needs to know, John, when I say veteran, Monroe Tenneco, Delphi, Senior Director of Worldwide Human Resources, Sales and Marketing. John, you were with Moog, Cooper Moog Federal Mogul as a Senior VP of HR, and you spent some time at CarQuest. And in 1995, you were inducted into the Automotive Aftermarket Hall of Fame. Wow. Adjunct Professor, Northwood, the University of the Aftermarket, and a member of the Aftermarket Foundation Board of Trustees. Do you have time for anything else?
Oh, I certainly do. I have time for my family and my 7 grandchildren and my semi-tennis game. And I've got a TR6 convertible that I play with.
Oh, how much fun could that be? Oh, yes.
Particularly this time of year, when I put their top down and drive around, look at the ocean, and turn the music up real loud and play music from the 60s, if you remember the 60s. You know.
I sure do.
Yep.
Yeah. Couple of great decades there, the 60s and the 70s of music.
Absolutely.
Hey, John, you wrote a book, The Human Side, High-Touch Leadership in a High-Tech World. And we were chatting about all the great stories that went on in the automotive aftermarket for years. And in your book, you covered a lot of great behind-the-scenes stories. And as I read the book, I said, I remember when that happened. And, wow, John just gave me an inside track on something that I never knew about. So I'm going to try to challenge your thinking as I take some of the lessons from the book and ask you to comment on them. You ready?
I'm ready when you are.
All right, man. In Chapter 2, it's titled The Impact and Purpose of Leadership. Now, you said the most important thing to evaluate in a person's life is how he or she impacts another human being. That's what leadership is all about, making an impact on those around you. You go on to articulate 4 characteristics of a good leader: conductor, connector, challenger, and caregiver. Now, John, can you give me an example of a leader who exemplified these characteristics?
Yes, I can, Carmen, and I'll try not to get too emotional about this, but I would say, and by the way, there's many leaders that I've been fortunate enough to work with or work for or consult with, but I would say I'll particularly talk about Larry McCurdy. Larry McCurdy was a combination of all 4 of those characteristics. I mean, Larry was a financial executive by background. He had an appointment to West Point out of East Texas. Unfortunately, his father passed away his sophomore year in college, so he had to come home and help support his mother. So he went to Texas A&M in finance, and after that, he graduated. He went to work for Tenneco in finance, and was quickly discovered, if you will, as somebody who could go very far in his career.
Uh-huh.
So Larry had a financial background, but he was able to, as he moved up in Tenneco and ended up running the automotive sector for Tenneco with Monroe and Walker, he became president of that division. But he was conductor in the sense that he was able to pull all the different parts of the organization together, much like someone, I love music and you love music. If you ever watch a conductor, they're geniuses. I mean, they know every note, right? And Larry had the ability to pull people together with diverse backgrounds, diverse education, diverse ethnic backgrounds, different parts of the country, and he had the ability to relate to them. There was no question he was results driven, but he always did it with the ability to connect with people, the ability to he had empathy. He had an ego, but he never let the ego get in the way of his decisions. And he was comfortable in his own skin, where we would have all employee meetings and he would talk openly about decisions that he had made or the executive committee had made that in retrospect were not the correct decisions, and what he was personally going to do about it and what the organization was going to do about it. So he engendered trust, he engendered integrity, he engendered passion, and he held us all to a very, very high standard. I mean,
yeah.
So I don't know if that answers that question, but I'm trying to frame a picture for you.
It does, John. What's interesting is that you describe a finance person who made such a great leap, and it sounds like he had a lot of EQ.
Well, no question, he did, and it was interesting because I was fortunate enough to work with him for 9 years at Moog, and 9 golden years, and I earned his trust, and many times I would go to his office and suggest something from the employee relations standpoint, and he would look at me and shake his hand and say, John, I'm a financial guy, but if you really think it's the right thing to do, we'll do it. And we did a Christmas drive. We were in Wellston, Missouri, which is in a very poor neighborhood, mean income about $11,000 a year per family. So we would collect food and take it to the schools and the shelters. And so 2 of the janitors on the night shift, Willie and Al, were pig farmers by day and worked at the plant at night. So they came to me, they said, Mr. John, we want to give you a live pig for the food drive. So I said, okay. So they showed up one morning, and they had a truck, a raggedy truck with a pig on the back of it. And I went out, put a red ribbon around the pig's neck, and I went into the office, and I'm Italian, and I can be loud at times, like you can. And very loudly I said, Mr. McCurdy, it's time to get your picture taken with the pig. And he had his suit and tie on, and we're walking out to the truck, and he says, Passante, I don't know whether to promote you or fire you. But we took the picture and put it on the front page of the employee newsletter. But that just shows you the side of him, the human side of a CEO.
That's a great story. And I remember either it's in the book, John, or you telling me about having to have some big cost-cutting moves and Larry deciding not to let one person go. Could you tell us that?
Yeah, and exactly. And it touches on, Karin, what you said about at the end of the day, and all of us are going to have the end of the day, right?
Yeah.
When we look back on our legacy, and I believe this with all my heart and soul, is that it's not any kind of wealth that you accumulate or your 401k or your pension or whatever the size of your home. It's did you make a difference in the lives of the people that you touched along the way? Did you help them become better? Did you help them find their passion? Did you help them become the person they're capable of becoming? With that said, when I talked about Larry McCurdy's father dying, and Larry McCurdy's father delivered bread and milk, and they lived in an apartment. And Larry's father, after 37 years, lost his job. And Larry said in that same meeting, Carm, he said, John, and this is a quote from Larry, God rest his soul, we're not going to take the cost savings off the backs of our employees because I saw what happened to my father. He said, you get the executives in the room, you have 5 days, you work as long as you can, as hard as you can, you guys come back with a plan, and I want how we're going to save some money, and we're not going to negatively affect any employee, hourly, salary, and we did. We came back, and he approved it. But that was where he was coming from with the experience, and he saw his family, his father go through at a very young age.
John, this is the reason we're doing this episode, because we wouldn't know these behind-the-scenes stories of how our beloved aftermarket got where it is, and sometimes the struggles that people go through to make things happen.
You're exactly right. And when you and I started, I was blessed to start when I worked for companies that were owned by families. I worked at Monroe, and the McIntyre families. They started Monroe Auto Equipment.
Yeah.
And later with Tenneco. To think I worked with Charlie McIntyre and that McIntyre family, and they adopted me. I was greener than grass. I didn't know the aftermarket from a hubcap, and they took me under their wing and they taught me and they mentored me and they gave me a lot of opportunities. And when I failed, they let me bounce back and put their arms around me and said, John, it'll be okay. You talk about the impact, and same way with Hub Moog at Moog. Think about that when you go into a company and you meet one of the founders of a major organization. Very humbling for an Italian from South Philly.
Wow. And there's not many people that probably today know the name Hub Moog.
No, isn't that sad?
Yeah, well,
isn't that sad?
That's why we're doing this. And maybe we've got to do a bunch of these episodes to get the story told. You know that 70% of professional technicians install Moog? Do you know who is best in class in engineering R&D? Do you know who holds 47 patents and has 28 dedicated engineers on staff? Yeah, Moog. You should know that 85% of Moog socket-style components are manufactured in North America, and that makes Moog best in class for manufacturing. And since 1966, every NASCAR championship has been won on Moog parts. But you knew that. I know why you install Moog. They solve your problems. Over the years, Moog has provided problem-solving innovations like a patented pressed-in cover plate, powdered metal gusher bearing technology, compression-loaded ball joints with a pre-installed integral dust boot, and vertical control arm bushings. You know why you install Moog. Enhanced durability, improved performance, and ease of installation. For more information, go to moogparts.com. Now you know. And so, John, this book, your book, The Human Side, here's a quote from the book, and I quote, "Storytelling is the single most powerful tool in a leader's toolkit." And that came from Dr. Howard Gardner, a Harvard professor. You put that in the book. So, John, stories stick. They speak to us. Do you have a story of being a lifelong learner?
Well, yeah, and let me preface that by why stories are so important to us. Stories what happens at your family and other families on Thanksgiving? What happens when you have a cookout? You sit around and you talk about your father. You talk about your aunt that came from Italy. You talk about a son. You talk about somebody who helped you. And so if you think about life is a series of stories that we collect. And so regard to a lifelong learner, I went to St. Thomas Aquinas grade school in East Toledo. East Toledo is a lunch bucket community, hardworking people, very, very ethnic, rich in ethics, and I made my life richer because of that. I had an 8th grade teacher, Sister Bernadine, who could have played professional football. She would have been a linebacker.
Nice image, thank you.
No, but I say that lovingly.
I understand. I understand.
So, I was a captain of the basketball team, and I was a pretty good basketball player. But every Friday, at the end of the day, the bell would ring, and on the door out before you left the classroom, in alphabetical order, were your names of the students. And if you had to get at least a B in conduct, otherwise you could not play basketball on Saturday. Well, I had a typical Italian 8th grade boy a week. I pulled a girl's hair in front of me. I spoke up in class when I wasn't supposed to speak.
All right.
And a few other things. So the bell rang, and of course, when the bell rings at 3 o'clock on Friday, you post haste, get out of the classroom as fast as you can. And I approached the door, and I looked down at John Anthony Passante, conduct for the week, B minus. And I was about to leave, and Sister Bernadine said, Mr. Passante, do you have a moment? Now, no one says no to Sister Bernadine.
Got it.
I was convinced that she spoke to God, I think, frequently. So I said, I'm not taking this risk. And so I said, yes, sister, I do. She said, Mr. Passante, get a chair and sit in front of my desk. Yes, sister. So I sit down, and she said, Mr. Passante, what did you learn today? I said, Sister Bernadine, you gave me a break. She said, you're a very smart young man. What are you going to do about it? I said, sister, you have my commitment. I will be well behaved in class, and I will start to learn, and I will start to commit to being a better student. She says, have a nice weekend. I pray for her every morning. I graduated first in my class in the 8th grade. I came across the stage and got an award. She gave me the award. She was crying. I was crying. She gave me a hug. I gave her a hug. That changed my life.
Wow.
I started to learn.
So sister turned you into a lifelong learner.
She lit the fire in me, and all of a sudden I started reading more, and I said, I want to make something of myself. And of course, my father was coming from Italy. He taught me the work ethic.
Yeah.
So the combination, he said, John, anything you'll get in life, you have to earn.
Great story, John. So listen to learn, talk to teach. You've been called a good listener. People have said that about you. Who comes to mind as a great listener that you knew? Well,
a couple people. I mean, on the personal side, my wife is a very good listener, and she's Irish, and so my father-in-law wasn't so sure about me when I first started dating her because I'm a Sicilian with a black shirt on, But she has the ability to listen and then reflect, and all of a sudden, maybe a couple hours later, she'll say something to me, and I'll go, "Wow, where did that come from?" And in the work environment, I'm trying to think. I mean, I'm thinking about. I think Hub Moog was a good listener. Hub Moog was a very humble man. If you had a meeting with him or a lunch with him, he worked very hard to have you talk, and he listened.
Got it.
I have a lot of respect for Hub. He would even not even let his they call them secretaries then, but admin get his coffee for him because that would upset him. He would get her coffee. But I think Hub was somebody that was that way. And again, I mean, McCurdy was a good listener too. He he could be in a meeting, and then, we have a staff meeting, and he didn't miss a trick. I mean, he didn't miss a nuance. Something would be said, and then 2 or 3 days later, he would call me down and say, "John, follow up on something." And he had it.
He remembered. Great.
Yes.
Good stories. Thanks. John, you encourage those you work with as an executive coach to live with high standards, to look for the best in others, and even to look in the mirror. Who comes to mind that impressed you through the years that had uncompromising standards?
Well, again, I mean, McCurdy had integrity. He had opportunities he used to get recruited from other companies, and he would tell me because he trusted me when we were at Moog, because he was a high profile McCurdy was all over the industry, we had great results. We were one of the most profitable companies in the aftermarket when I was at Moog, and we were owned by a division of Fiat, which I like because they're Italian, I'm Italian, so it worked out, But he had so much integrity that he would not take advantage of the situation were favorable for him and unfavorable for others. And I don't want to talk about specifics because that's private. But
yeah.
I watched that. Another gentleman who you probably knew was John Collins. John Collins, I hired John at Monroe. I hired John at Moog. He came out of the Eklund organization. John Collins is retired now, but Collins became president of Moog after McCurdy became president of Cooper Division and moved to Houston. So I reported to John Collins. But John Collins was another gentleman who would never sacrifice personal gain. He would not sacrifice his own integrity for personal gain. I think the McIntyre family. A name you probably remember was John Gerlich, who started AP Parts.
Sure.
Another legend maybe people forgot about. But John drove a used car. He drove an old Chrysler product. He was a millionaire in the 70s and 80s and 90s. But he, again, he always told me at lunch, he said, "I always want to do what's right for the organization. If I do what's right for the organization, it'll end up being right for me." Pretty good words of wisdom.
Real strong. Wow, excellent. John, in your book you have a passage. Watch your thoughts, they build your habits. Watch your habits, they shape your character. Watch your character, it develops your attitude. Watch your attitude, it commands your behavior. And watch your behavior, it shapes your thoughts. Share a memorable story, John, of someone with an exemplary attitude.
You ever meet a character by the name of Warren Ellis? Warren Ellis was with Monroe, and he was a regional manager in New York. He looked like and he acted like Winston Churchill.
Ah, the sales guy.
A sales guy. He smoked 5 or 6 large cigars a day. And Warren, I think if we sent him to the Middle East, he would probably find a way to have peace.
Oh,
he was
boy.
one of those type of gentlemen that we went to New York City, and I'm probably 28, 29 years old. One of our largest WDs was really upset with Monroe because we had signed another warehouse. You remember those days?
I do.
And so Warren said, he used to call me Johnny. Johnny, we're going to New York, taking a company plane. Pick me up at 7 o'clock. So I did.
Now, wait a minute, John, you were in HR at the time, right?
Yes.
But he needed you, why?
He adopted me because he said, you're a good listener and you relate well to people.
All right. Okay, good.
And he said, you take the notes and you'll follow up because I won't. He said, I'll forget. And he took me to Apex. I was the only HR person at Apex. I'm not trying to pat myself on the back, but he took me because he said, John, you have a way of building relationships with people.
Yeah.
So we went to this meeting, and this is a big account. I don't know, in hundreds of thousands of dollars of shocks we were selling to them, and they were threatening to change lines and go to Miramont. And you would think that he and I were going to play golf or something. I picked him up. He was whistling in the car, smoking a cigar, breathing on me with that cigar and all over my suit. And we get in the plane and we're drinking coffee, and he's telling. He was a historian. He was telling me about the American Revolution, and he was a well-read gentleman. we went to this meeting, and it was like we were walking in to a firing squad. I mean, they were ready for us. They had data, statistics, market share,
Yeah.
We were in that meeting about maybe 45 minutes, and Warren looks at this guy, the president of the company, and he said, "You want to spend 5 or 6 hours talking about this stuff? Well, you trust me that we're not going to hurt you." And the other side, it was just Warren and I and about 8 or 9 guys on the other side of the table. So it's 9 on 2.
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah.
And I'm thinking, and he said, "Mr. Passante and I want to take you to lunch. You want to go to lunch? You want to spend the rest of the day talking about this stuff?"
Yeah.
And the president said, "The meeting's over. I'm going to lunch." Warren never changed his attitude when we got bought by Tenneco. When sales were down, he never belittled his people, his salespeople. He held them accountable. And you probably have seen that when you're having a bad quarter, this true character comes out sometime when you see the ugly side of people. And again, I'm a firm believer, Carm, in accountability, but it's that the character of, if I'm only a good leader when things are good, then I'm not really an effective leader. Where the character comes through is when times get tough, then you show your true colors.
Great story, and great, very wise words, John. Thanks. Brake jobs are a staple component of all successful shops, and getting the brake job right helps build a quality reputation for any shop. When the best is called for and stopping distance, rotor wear, and pad life are important to every shop and its customers, Wagner OEX brake pads are your only choice. Based on benchmark testing conducted by Link Engineering Company, Wagner OEX pads can stop a pickup, SUV, or CUV up to 50 feet sooner. Based on internal testing comparing new Wagner OEX to other Wagner offerings, the unique design of Wagner OEX increases pad life up to 2 times longer. The customized shape and slot design of each of the more than 114 SKUs creates a turbulent airflow that allows for cooler operation and improved stopping power for the vehicle on which it was designed. Wagner OEX cover 95% of the U.S. market of pickups, SUVs, and CUVs. Wagner has the science behind stopping perfected. They conduct 13,000 critical tests each year, and as of today, have 258 issued patents with 68 patents pending. Wagner has earned their stripes. Now they want to earn yours. Install Wagner OEX, the customized brake pad that can stop your customer's truck up to 50 feet sooner. Now, mentoring. You talk a lot about mentoring in your book, and you've said all companies can benefit from implementing a mentoring program. Mentoring's the glue that holds the organization together. It can increase employee retention, and it clearly demonstrates that the company has an interest in its employees. John, of all the people you've mentored, and you've mentored a lot, can you share the value it brought to your mentee?
I'll share a story. I coached a gentleman. He's about 6'6", and he was it still is a top sales executive, senior vice president for a major manufacturer. By presence alone, when he entered the room at 6'6", he made an impact, And the chairman of the company said, "John, when he gets in front of the board, he gets weak-kneed. Now, you can put him in front of O'Reilly's, you can put him in front of CarQuest, the group, you can put him in Prato, Federated, any of those guys, and he's strong. But for some reason, when he gets in that meeting with the board of directors, he becomes jello." So I coached him for about a year and a half, and we kept trying to. What my job is I go deep. I try to say, I want people to really look inside themselves, and what they tell me stays with me. And I said, at the end of the day, you got to really find out what you're about, and what you want to be, and what you don't want to be, and why things bother you, and so that you can get rid of any of these anxieties that you have. So finally, one day, I said, okay, let's talk about your presentation skills. And I said, what happens to you when you go in front of the board of directors? He said, John, let me tell you a story. A story, Carm. A story.
Ah, I've heard that before. Yes.
Let me tell you a story.
All right.
He said, where I come from, the part of the country, on Thanksgiving Day, you go deer hunting. You get up early in the morning. Mother's in the kitchen, getting ready for a big family Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Dad and the sons get in the truck. They get their guns. They go out in the woods, and they hunt for deer. He said, my brother and I, and my brother was younger. This gentleman was the older brother. They go out and they go hunting. His brother shoots like a 4 or 5, 6 point deer. I don't know. I've never shot a deer. I don't own a gun. And he said, I shot a 14 point deer, big rack, maybe a big rack, And he said, my father took 8 or 9 pictures of my brother with his deer, and only 1 picture of me with my deer.
And I had the bigger deer.
And I had the bigger deer. And I'm the older brother. And Carm, as he's telling me this story, he's weeping. He gets weepy.
Wow.
And here I have this 6'6" guy in my room at a hotel room where we do the coaching. It's for 4 hours at a clip. And I got up and put my arms around him, and I said, can I ask you some questions? He said, yes. I said, what does your brother do today? He said, he's a clerk working for some government agency. And I said, what do you do today? He said, you know what I do today. I said to this gentleman, don't you think your father realized that your brother needed more reinforcement than you did? That your brother needed more attention and appreciation that you did? That he saw that you were going to carry the load, you were going to go the distance. Your brother didn't have that confidence. All of a sudden, I see him in Vegas, he comes up, he runs to me and said, John, you changed my life. But that you talk about an insight, I'm getting goosebumps sharing that story with you, because he went back, the chairman called me, he said, John, you created a monster. He said, this guy has so much confidence now, the board loves him. But you see the connection there?
I do, absolutely. You almost have to shed some baggage, John, huh?
Yes. I mean, so that story, and I have many, many more in mentoring where people have, the challenge we have, particularly with men, Carm, men do not share their inner thoughts because it's machismo, it's macho, it's our job to shoulder on.
Yeah.
Women outlive us because they don't deny their feelings. Men, you and I included, we deny our feelings. And that it's stress, heart attack, hypertension, blood pressure issues. All those things come from the way we treat our bodies and the way we carry stuff around inside of us. And so when I mentor men, I really encourage them to share with me what's really on their mind.
So would you recommend an emotional intelligence class for any man or any executive to help further their career?
Oh, I think it's mandatory. And training is one of my passions. I'm really concerned that when I was at a meeting about a month ago with some very high-level people, and they said what they're hearing in the industry is companies say we're too busy to train our employees. That's a topic for another day.
Yeah.
But you could have 160 IQ, but if you don't have emotional intelligence, if you don't have empathy, if you don't have compassion, if you don't have the ability to listen, if you don't have the ability to build a relationship with people, you're not going to be successful. You and I have friends like that, smart as a whip, but they're abrasive or they're aloof, and so emotional intelligence is really, it's the key to being successful. And by the way, it's the key to being more happy in life too.
Hey, great story, man. Thank you so much for that. John, let's talk about character again. And maybe you've got another story deep down inside. Character can be defined as an aggregate of traits, features, moral and ethical qualities, and one's reputation. And character is the sum of all your lifelong habits. And this is from your book, John. From a leader's perspective, character means conducting yourself as a role model, embodying the principles of truthfulness and fairness, acting as a person of virtue, and earning the trust of others. Who in all your years embodies that pinnacle of character and trust?
You're a rascal, you know that. I say that fondly, because there's many names that come to mind, you know, and I don't want to slight anyone, but let me start this way. I think I've seen people change the more successful they get. I've seen people change not to the better, but to the worse, because they start believing they're better than those that are not at their level. Have you ever witnessed that in your career?
Yeah, oh, sure.
And, you know, I think Temple Sloan, the junior, the father, and when I worked for Temple, I mean, Temple was consistent. Temple was straightforward. He was demanding in a positive sort of way. He never deviated from that. Temple worked 7 days a week, even though he was a billionaire with a B. And I would give him high marks. And again, Carm, Larry McCurdy. I mean, he never deviated from, because, you know, the interesting part about leadership and character is you can't fool the people. If you say one thing and act another way, employees know it. And so you got to, whoever you decide you want to be, if you have to be consistent. And so when I went to Moog, all the executives had fancy cars. And I'm a car guy. In front of the building at Moog was a Corvette, Audi, Porsche, Cadillac. Mm-hmm. And so I thought, boy, I died and went to heaven. So here I am. I'm on a job a week. McCurdy called me down. He said, I got an assignment for you. I said, sure, Larry. He said, take the company cars away. I said, what? He said, the UAW plant is right next door. And he said, you're going to negotiate a contract a year from now. And we need to get some concessions because foreign competition is starting to bite at our market share and pricing. So here I am there less than 2 weeks, Carm. So I walk into the CFO's office. Well, by the way, I later on became the godfather for his daughter.
Good for you.
He's another big, tall guy, John Corey, God bless him.
Okay.
He's a friend. And he's another 6 foot tall guy. So he said, oh, what's on your mind, John? I said, that Corvette? He said, yeah, it's pretty cool, isn't it? I said, yeah, it's got to go. What? I said, yeah, it's got to go. He said, what?
And you're the new guy on the block telling this guy, all right.
Yeah, so, I mean, we gave him a buyout program and all that other stuff. But what I'm saying to you is, to me, that was, Larry drove a Pontiac 6000, and he said, you could drive anything as long as it's less than a Pontiac 6000, and it's American made. And so to me, that was walking the walk and talking the talk.
Yeah.
You know, and so to me, that's embodies character. And he you know, and if we had a tight year and we didn't get big increases, McCurdy would not take an increase, even though the board said to me, you know, what's your recommendation? Give McCurdy he said, John, I'm no better than anybody else. If we're tightening the belt, I tighten the belt with it. So to me, if that makes sense to you, that is character.
It sure does make a lot of sense to you. In the beginning of this episode, you said, yeah, let's do passion. Passion, I'm in it. I'm all cranked up. Is passion a trait that people have to have, and can they have too much, John?
Well, there's two questions there. I mean, I think whatever you do something that you really love, and I don't mean to embarrass you, but you love doing the podcast. You love that you started your own business, and you're a game changer. And I say that with the utmost respect, and I told you that when we first met.
Yep, thanks, man.
So, no, and I mean that sincerely.
Thank you.
And you certainly deserve that. And so the answer to the question is, if you think about how many people go to work every day that really don't want to go to the place they're going. And I wrote an article for the Automotive Aftermarket News. Gallup poll about 3 or 4 years ago did a survey, and this will absolutely upset you, but over 60% of employees say they're doing the bare minimum to get by on their job. Now, how in the world can we compete? How in the world can companies succeed if people are coming in doing the bare minimums? And a high percentage of them said they would leave today if they could get another job. So is passion important? Passion starts on how, this afternoon, you're giving me passion, or you're lighting a flame of passion in me by the questions you're asking me. Yeah. To me, that's a role that leadership has to say, I call it the hot button. What's the hot button of the person working in accounts payable? And they have one. What's the hot button of the admin that's keeping the executive straight from all the administrative stuff they have to go through? Is it recognition? Is it, what can I do to challenge you more? What issue? What ideas do you have that we can make the company better? So I think the successful people that you know and I know clearly have passion. And as far as having too much passion, I guess you can. Mm-hmm. And I'm trying to think about, I guess you could be over enthusiastic, but I guess I'd rather err on the side of having too much and not enough.
It's probably easier to tone it down than to find it within you.
I think that's right. I think that's very insightful. I think it is. But I would submit to you that I call it the power of the human spirit, that people want to do a good job because they have pride in themselves. No one goes to work every day driving to work and says, I can't wait to make a mistake today and screw something up at work. I can't wait to go to work and lose a customer today. They don't do that.
Right, yeah.
You go to Starbucks, and I go to Starbucks because you and I travel the country. The people at Starbucks have passion. They're selling coffee. They smile. They say good morning. Right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Why would we pay $4 for 17 cents worth of coffee?
Exactly. Because it's experience. It's an experience. And I live in Barrington, Rhode Island, small town, 17,000 people. I go to our Starbucks. They know me. I'm in line. They make the coffee, and they hand it to me.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, here's my $4, and here's a $1 tip. I'm a happy guy.
John, what's your drink? What do you drink?
I drink decaf, Venti decaf.
That's it?
That's it.
Something simple. Black?
Yeah. Black. Yeah, that's it.
Imagine how long it takes to get just a black cup of coffee at Starbucks.
Not too long. I'm not one of those exotic, Yeah, my wife is. I'm not though. Yeah.
Hey, but I've had a blast. I've absolutely had a blast. In fact, you have shared some incredible behind-the-scenes stories of legacy aftermarket people, and we kind of wrapped it all up in some great personal traits based on your great book that you wrote. That I happen to have a signed copy of, The Human Side: High-Touch Leadership in a High-Tech World. So, John, tell all the aftermarketers that are listening, where can we read your articles? And I know you continue to write for industry magazines, right? Yes, I do.
If they can go to the Automotive Aftermarket News.
Okay.
And I'm a columnist there, and if they Google that and they go under opinion, and they can see my article. I think I've written so far maybe 55 articles over the last 4 or 5 years. I wrote one last week, was published, entitled, Are You a Dealer in Hope? And then a week before that, or 2 weeks before that, I wrote an article about hope and change are relatives. So if you wanted, those are the 2 current articles I've written.
Well, I get them, and I read them, and I usually save most of them.
Thank you. I'm honored and humbled.
I think I owe you $1 for every article I have. Well, hey, can we do this again?
Absolutely. And I really I get emotional. And some of the people I talked about really, I got goosebumps talking about them. But as a veteran, and you're a veteran too, I hope that the organizations out there today tell their story, because many times I'll talk to employees in companies and I'll say, What is the value proposition of your company? And Carm, they don't know.
Yeah.
And when I started in the companies I started with, we knew why Monroe shocks were good. We knew why Moog chassis parts were good. We knew why AP made best mufflers and tailpipes. You know what I'm saying? And I think employees need to know what they represent.
Yeah, and they also need to know what the organization's purpose is, because that helps get you out of bed every day.
Well, yeah, because one of my favorite stories is they ask a woman up at the Mayo Clinic, what do you do for a living? And she says, I save lives.
Yeah.
And they said, well, ma'am, what do you do? And she says, I work in maintenance. Now, how about that? I work in maintenance.
That's the connection that's necessary. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, you remember the story, right? The guy walking up to the building under construction, and the bricklayer finally says, I'm not laying bricks, but I'm building a building.
Yes.
He saw the big vision. Yeah.
Yeah, that. You and I come from the same school.
Yeah, and it was always about, an Italian bricklayer, John, right?
Right. Well, exactly.
Exactly.
But I'm optimistic that there's a big future ahead for our aftermarket, and I just want to make sure we remember the human side.
Yeah. Great final comments. Thanks, Emil. Appreciate having you, man.
God bless. Talk to you soon.
Hey, Aftermarketers, thank you so much for listening to John. So for additional notes on John Passante and his bio and links to his company, find them exclusively on the show's episodes page on Remarkable Results Radio. And that would be remarkableresults.biz/E144. You can also get on board as a subscriber and get the pulse on every new episode release. And it's so easy to do. remarkableresults.biz/insider. Hey, I really do appreciate your engagement with the podcast and would ask that you help spread the word. Your help is needed to unite our industry. Hey, I'm grateful for your support, and we'll talk soon. Thanks for being on board to listen and learn from another inspiring aftermarket professional. Until next time.